Plan Commission meeting, November 14th. It is slightly after 5:15, 5:18 to be exact. We'll start with roll call. Here with us tonight is Alderman Alan Keelan, Eric Olson. I gotta write that down quick. I'm doing double duty tonight, so give me a break. Commissioner Tracy Barrett and myself, Justin Behrens, acting as the chair for absent Mayor Brian Smith. Also absent is Pat Fair and John Kinnear. Staff tonight on hand is Brennan Kane. So on the agenda in front of you, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
So motion by Keelan, second by Olson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You have in your packet, there was Plan Commission minutes from October 17th, 2018. Any discussion? Well, excuse me, we need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Barrett, second by Allen.
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And we have no action items tonight, so we got nothing to vote on. But we do have a discussion item, which is our zoning code revision, which Brennan is going to lead the charge on. Take it away.
Thank you, Chairman Behrens, Acting Chairman Behrens this evening. Thank you, Plan Commission members. So we wanted to have, as I'll say, as staff, my department, we wanted to have a conversation with the Plan Commission tonight regarding the city's zoning code. A few of you have been on the board. I've been here for about 5 years now, and this has been one of those, I'll say, outstanding projects that we've tried to start, had to stop, tried to start, had to stop, did a patchwork, did another patchwork, and as a city, as a community, we've been doing a lot of planning over the last couple of years with our downtown and our Main Street project and our Riverview Front project, and that has brought up a lot of issues, not only within the downtown, but community wide. And as we've, over the last couple of years, my department has continued to be inundated with different new ideas or I'll say challenges with some of the existing zoning code that we've had to make modifications. I use the word patchwork probably several times because we have done that on multiple occasions over the last couple of years. Examples of like the chicken ordinance and the B7 district, temporary structures, garage or detached garages. So we've had a lot of different items come forward that have conflicted with the current zoning code, and just in general. The current zoning code does cause, I'll say, a multitude of issues from an enforcement standpoint, and just from utilizing the code on a day-to-day basis and enforcing it. And it's a challenge working with developers sometimes when we have all these different restricted covenants out in some of the business parks and overlying design standards that conflict with restricted covenants that are out there. So there's a lot of different things that are tied into kind of the conversation this evening. What the city staff, we've met with the design review team, which includes Justin, myself, and Henry, and kind of present a timeline this evening of what we would like to do for 2019 and making this a priority project for the community and for the Plan Commission to work on. This would be, again, an internal project. We would be utilizing some resources outside with the Central Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission, and we still do have an intern within my department that will be helping with this project at least until May or June. But hopefully, kind of as we go through this, I know that, like I said, I've brought this forward to the Plan Commission before, and hopefully not get into the weeds of things, but just giving a broad brush objective of what we're trying to do, what we're looking to move towards. If there's any questions, we'll certainly answer that this evening, and kind of hopefully get a consensus at the end of this, is that this is the process that we'd like to travel down over the next year. But why should Waupaca switch? And there's a lot of things that go into it. We need to better align our building, zoning, and fire codes is one of the priorities. We have been over the last, we have a new building inspector that's been brought on for about a year now, and there's been a lot of conflicts been identified. Not even, I mean, this is with just the international building code and the fire codes that conflict with our zoning codes. So there's been a lot of times and challenges trying to enforce all those different codes where the plan commission may approve one project, but then it may conflict with the building code. So we need to better align some of those, you know, and just in general, again, that talks about the setbacks and height requirements in different areas and different districts. Some of the things that we can easily address is, aside from it up there, it talks about property maintenance. You'll see later this evening we have a new report in the Plan Commission packet about property maintenance or our code enforcement, and there's a lot of challenges even on that side of it, and how do we enforce the code? And there's so many different aspects of the municipal code that are in different places. So we're trying to bring all those into one comprehensive, complete area. This approach that we're looking at is kind of similar to what we did when we created Chapter 26, working with the Plan Commission. That was the animal ordinance. If you guys remember, we spent a considerable amount of time on that ordinance after we had done the chicken ordinance, but realizing that there was other issues in other sections of the regular municipal code, we stripped all that away, created a new district, and that's kind of what we're looking at doing here. Is there's stuff in Chapter 9, which is the public nuisance side of it. There's things in Chapter 14, which is the building code. There's things in Chapter 18, which is the platted and subdivision. So trying to create a comprehensive zone code is what we're trying to get to. Site design requirements. Right now, there's not really any community or unified vision. We've been, I think we've started on that track. I think for many years, the city has been very fortunate with the development that has occurred here, but I don't think there's really been a unified vision from the community saying this is how we want our community to be. One of the projects that we're working on right now is the branding and wayfinding, and that's really going to hopefully help identify, and create a vision for Waupaca. And by doing this zoning code, we're going to be, introducing some of that into the zoning code and actually really creating a cohesive vision for Waupaca moving forward. So, we started seeing some of these ideas and objectives when we did the Main Street project, and we want to further that, enhance that. And for instance, we talk about site design requirements. When I started here 5 years ago, there wasn't really any design standards. I mean, we had the business park that had their restricted covenants, but there's 3 or 4 different sets that I need to work with out there. There's an interchange zoning overlay district that conflicts with some of the standards. So it's been very complicated, and I think we've, between myself, my staff, and working with the Plan Commission, we've been able to, marry through and kind of find a common line. But what we're hoping to do is, combine some of the existing standards that are out there, create a cohesive vision, and make it simpler for the developer. So when they do come to the community and they want to develop, it's very concise. This is the vision that we're looking for. This is the type of development we're looking at. This is the type of architectural features that we want on the buildings or the materials. So we have a clear, defined vision, something that we want to achieve. A more understandable and concise code. Again, talking about right now, and as we'll get into it, it's just words on a paper. It's very hard to interpret. Sometimes developers have challenges with it, so we want to get to a code that provides pictures and graphics that depict the requirements, what we're looking at, more visually appeasing. It combats outdated portions of the current zoning code, and really, hopefully it'll streamline some of the development process. We have challenges right now where we have projects that, there was a patch that was done in 2005, which I think created, there's some more oversight by the Plan Commission, but I think also created some challenges for streamlining the development review process by requiring a lot more things to go through a public hearing process. Nothing wrong with that, but, when individuals, are looking to move into a building, a lot of times they don't know what's going on. Or they don't even know that they need a special use permit, which then sets them back 45 to 60 days minimum. And, we lose some businesses because of that process. So hopefully by redoing the zoning code, we can streamline some of that process and make it a little bit quicker to, fill some of the vacancies that we have in town. Less gray area, but provides greater flexibility. And what I mean by that is there's less interpretation, but we still provide guidance, but there's still opportunities for people to work within the gray area, but it's more consistent and a little bit greater flexibility. And one of the big issues is, trying to solve the patchwork that has gone on over the last couple of years, and those are just some of the examples that I put up there, the B7 and even the B6 when that was created. The B6 was created specifically when Fleet Farm was incorporated into the city. and that's the interchange zone. But then there was, again, there's conflictions with other design requirements that are out there, chicken bees, detached garages. So Euclidean zoning is a very standard zoning that was adopted by most all communities back in, the 50s and 60s when zoning was really introduced to Wisconsin. Again, zoning was introduced, again, New York, if we're going back to history, back in the 1930s to combat and, create, protect the health, safety, and general welfare of its residents. But really, zoning didn't get incorporated until about the, 60s and 70s here in Waupaca. That's when the first zoning code was actually brought forward to the community. And like most zoning codes that you see out there, surrounding townships where I previously worked, we had a very similar type of code. It's very utilitarian. It's very generic. It just has words on a paper. But as you can see, it talks about more of, it divided, created more hard borders, on some of the things instead of creating that flexibility that I think we're trying to see, and trying to, create these neighborhoods and everything else. And it was more auto-orientated as part of this perspective. I've brought this kind of idea forward before as, what is form-based zoning, and it really addresses the relationship between the building facades and the public realm, the form and the mass of the buildings in relation to one another, and the scale and types of streets and blocks. In a nutshell, what that means is how does the building interact with the street? And that starts defining what type of vision you want for your community, what type of street front you want. Do you want more of a walkable neighborhood? So what type of elements? We use Main Street, for example. If we were to look at the zoning code, how would we like to envision Main Street to redevelop over time? With the Main Street project we have going on, we'd like to have awning. So at what level does that get? Some of the standards that we talk about is, how far out can they go? How tall can they be? What type of box or character that we want in the area. So it really starts getting into the form of the building in relationship to the space, instead of just saying, here's the 25-foot setback, do whatever you want. There are still requirements for setbacks, but again, we're looking more at the form instead of actually just the function of it. The benefit of this is, as you can see as an example on the right-hand side, this is just an example, but it's more visually appealing. So when developers and residents are looking at whatever specific zoning district that they're in, they can go there. From a visual perspective, they can understand what they have to do, what we're actually interpreting or requesting them to do. 5 common elements of a form-based code are regulating plan, public standards, building standards, administration, definitions. And these are just kind of the 5 pieces that you can see it more in a little visual perspective. But on the left-hand side, you have the regulating plan. Right now, we have a zoning map. That would be kind of our regulating plan. I would say there is differences between the two, between a form-based code regulating plan and a regular zoning map or a comprehensive plan, but there's still some form of a regulating plan that guides the development of this community. The public standards is where you're really going to start seeing some changes, and that's really talking about how buildings react to the streets and how the public reacts to the streets and the different aspects of that. There's building standards. Again, we instead of just saying that there's a setback of 25 feet, we start talking about that relationship of how we'd like the buildings to be designed. We're not trying to overcomplicate things. We're not trying to zone out or develop out prospective developers, but we're again trying to set that tone of this is the type of development we would like to see. And we already have some of these guidelines in place in the business park. We talk about height and variations in the side when you have larger industrial buildings. So those are the type of things that we're looking at that that we would be looking to incorporate into some other zoning districts within the community. There's the administration side of it, and that's where I talk about the streamlined application process and review process, and then just we talked about the definitions, but there's a more encompassing glossary that goes with this, which is also visually appealing as well. What we're kind of proposing here is, I would say, the hybrid form-based zoning code. And some of the benefits we're looking at is, it promotes active transportation. If you can achieve this, you decide the uses. Again, having kind of a hybrid is that we provide that flexibility of, incorporating other uses into areas of the community, or we start creating different sectors or nodes. I think one example, that I look at is I look at Churchill Street, and that right now is classified as a neighborhood business B1, but, the opportunity to maybe incorporate some more corner stores or corner restaurants into some of these, fringe neighborhoods really starts creating that sense of community in place. This would also encourages the public interaction with the code. We are going to be providing or presenting a timeline that really brings the public into this process. The big thing that is the last two. It stimulates sense of place and community pride. We hope that at the end of this process that the community can rally around this. Again, we as a city have been working on multitude of projects, and I think this all ties together at the end of the day of where we want to see Waupaca go in the future. And again, this is based on a community vision. We as a department, we kind of went back and forth and just kind of wanted to provide some positive negatives. There's positive negatives for every single type of zoning code, but if you look at the Euclidean, which is kind of the standard what we have in place right now, it's very familiar to people. I mean, because it's been the standard that a lot of municipalities and communities, towns, cities, villages have utilized for many years. But you're also seeing a lot of communities realizing that this is not the best standard practice and have started to update their zoning code, whether it's more on neighborhood basis or more it's a zone basis. Or area basis, but you are seeing a lot more. I see a lot more communities starting to go towards this route, creating these type of hybrids or going to full-scale form-based codes. Again, the negative is it prevents the potential mixing and creating those mixed-use land uses. Those are the positives. The negatives: lack of flexibility. Doesn't really comprehensively regulate design, and that's one of the big things that we're looking at here. It kind of encourages urban sprawl a little bit, and instead of refocusing on incorporating some of this stuff into maybe existing neighborhoods, it's more auto-orientated and does not really encourage the mix of uses that we're looking for. The form-based code, the positives, it gives landowner flexibility in the use and design of their space. We still provide guidelines, but it's a little bit more flexible in what you can and can't do. Greater ability to enforce the property maintenance side of it. So we have guidelines and standards set in place of how we'd like the buildings to look. So that helps us in the enforcement side of it and makes sure that all properties are up to code. Kind of achieves more of a predictable result. And, we're not trying to create a cookie cutter place, but we're trying to, create a place that has some uniformity to this. Their building and street design are more coordinated, and one of the big positives of going to this is it's way more user-friendly to this, as I've kind of shown. The negatives on, if you go to the form-based code, one of the biggest challenges is it's not going to be very familiar with some developers or residents, but I think the positive is by going to more of a visual visual type of ordinance, it will be easier, but it's gonna be a learning curve for everybody. It's still a learning curve for me some days when I look at all these different examples. Again, there's a focus on the architectural and design standards, and just getting a better understanding of what that looks like. Luckily, my background's in architecture, so I think it helps us in this process. And some of the stakeholders may still want to control what their land uses are and what they do on their property, but I think that happens in any type of zoning code. The hybrid that we're going to kind of propose is it's more user friendly for the business and more business and developer friendly. And the hybrid is that we take some aspects of the Euclidean zoning, that's the standard zoning, but we incorporate a lot more of the visual aspects into the hybrid and create that type of mixture. So it preserves some of the basic standards that people are currently familiar with. Places, again, a higher priority on site and building standards. It's a one-stop shop. So again, the example that I was talking with is chapter 26, which is the animal. We now have everything in one section. So you are not going to 4 or 5 different sections of the zoning code. In this instance, I have it here, for example, if you look at the chapter 17, we have all our different zoning districts, and then you got to go over to the landscaping standards, and then you got to go over to the platting standards, then you got to go over to the signage. By redoing the zoning code, we would actually encompass all those things into one section. So if Tracy is zoned R1 and wants to know what type of signage she can have on her property, or what she can do. She can go to the R1 district, and everything is listed there, so you're not going back and forth and getting confused. Because even within the zoning code, we have challenges and conflicts with different things that are already within our existing zoning code. And this has the ability to address some of the things that have come up recently. We talked about the urban agriculture. We've had inquiries about tiny homes. We've talked about parklets. Rain gardens. So there's other instances that have come up recently that what we're hoping to do in this comprehensive review process and update is incorporate and take under those ideas under advisement as we go through this process. These are just kind of some examples that you would see from what you would be incorporating towards zoning code. Again, these are form-based code examples, but on the left is kind of that regulating plan that was identified. So in this example here, they have what they call like the downtown core. They have the urban and then the urban edge. So we're looking at, because of the size of Waupaca, we're looking at something similar to be broken down like this. So we actually minimize some of the zoning districts that are within there. The middle diagram is kind of just the stand. I won't say the standard, but there's what they call the transect, and you're basically going from rural type of development all the way to urban type of development, and how do those uses incorporate together. So we would be creating something, a unique transect for Waupaca that describes our land uses. And then again, on the right hand side, it's just an example of what one page of the zoning code for that district would actually look like. It's a little bit hard to see, but here's kind of the proposed timeline that we're looking at. We're looking to kick this project off in January at the Planning Commission, and just kind of introduce the conceptual ideas of the hybrid zoning code, talk about different issues, and then we are planning, or we are trying to incorporate, I'm going to say between 3 and 4. Right now, we haven't called community chats, but we want this to be a very public process, in the sense that we want the public's input on this. We as staff will be doing a lot of the legwork and presenting those ideas, just like a consultant usually would be presenting ideas, and then getting feedback from these different community chats. So the first meeting really is, and I'm actually kind of excited because from a department level standpoint is, what are the current frustrations? What are the challenges that we have out there right now? I hear it on a day-to-day basis that, some days the department's not always the easiest to work with, but I never get a concrete examples of, how to change that. So we're hoping to have, this community chat that will really identify some of those challenges and those barriers, and how do we start breaking that down. Again, this is going to be a very public process, so this is going to be run through the design review team internally, along with, we intend to have the Planning Commission have kind of monthly updates of where we're at with the zoning code, and talk to you guys and work through with you guys. One of the unique features with this timeline as well is the library has approached the city about, or at least my department, about doing an exhibit down in the library. They are doing a kind of a past, present, and future exhibit. So they've been working, Tracy, with you from the Historical Society about the past. The present is going to be a very interactive, I don't want to say game, but it's going to be interactive. I'm losing the word here right now. Project where the kids will be able to actually color things and kind of design their own little city within their main street. And the future is we're going to incorporate some of this project into the future side of it, so we can get public input as part of that process as well. But that is everything I have, kind of in a glorified about 15-minute presentation or 20-minute presentation. So I'll open it up for I know it's a lot to be thrown at you guys. I know that, again, this has been kind of brought forward to the Planning Commission. One of the biggest things that I'm seeking, at least tonight, from the Planning Commission, and then I would be at least bringing forward to talk to the Common Council about, is we're not here to stop development at all. And internally we had gone back and forth about how to achieve this, because, a lot of the zoning updates and the patchwork that we have done has taken us off track a bit. We get inquiries, hey, we want to change something, and then we're sidetracked for 3 or 4 months, and then it's trying to get the wheels back on the rail, trying to get this project started. And what I'm looking for is consensus from the Planning Commission that we approve this process, and that if we do, whether it's our department or whether the city or the Planning Commission gets inquiries as we we have had a couple inquiries. Kari and Russ were here a month or two ago and talking about that process. Instead of spending 4 or 6 months going off the rails and trying to figure out how we can patch this back into an existing zoning code, we'd like to take those ideas that people bring forward to the planning commission, to my department, review them, and then incorporate them into the new zoning code. So what I'm really looking forward is from the planning commission is that consensus that, we can't really go off the rails. We really need to focus on this project. And again, we're not here to stop development. As if there's unique things that come forward, we'll certainly work with residents and developers. But at the same time, I'm hopefully trying to avoid some of those offshoots where it's going to take us a couple months and then not get back on the train for a while and delay this process. So that's what we're kind of looking. That's what I have for this evening, and open up for questions from any of the members of the planning commission.
This time.
Not right now.
I will say that I think your timeline looks good. When you started talking about it, I was thinking something more condensed, or you would present something more condensed. It would be a little more unrealistic, but I think planning an entire year of kind of hashing all these things out is the way to go. So basically, it looks to me like every single meeting we'll have some sort of update from you, and then we'll probably looking at specific parts of the code and developing something new.
Yeah.
So.
I like the hybrid idea. Taking the best of each thing and trying to make it work, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's, there's no doubt it's going to be a different, it's going to look completely different when it's done. I mean, it's going to be more user-friendly. I think there will be some challenges getting it up and running, getting people to understand it, but I also believe that people can change, and I think with the progress that we've made on some of our other projects over the last couple of years, people are getting a little bit more involved and a little bit more understanding of what we're trying to get, the vision that we're trying to get to. And I think with all the other initiatives that we've undertaken thus far, this complements it very well. No doubt, I have an intern that would probably like to get this done in 6 months, but I did not think that was realistic either, knowing my time schedule and everything else. But again, we really want to put a priority on this for 19 and really undertake this and focus on it. So that is the goal of the department, and that's why, again, I'm looking at, and I'll be bringing this forward to the council as well, and just to, provide an overview. But I really need the support of the planning commission and the common council to say, this is a priority for the community and the department, and this is what we're working on. And again, I'm not stopping development, but we want to incorporate, anything that does come forward. We'll review it as part of this overall process.
So for the members that are missing tonight, you're going to get them a written copy of this?
Yep, I can certainly do that. I've spoken to the mayor about this process and everything else, but certainly we'll get a kind of a summary out to you guys as well.
They should be able to watch the video because we're being videotaped now. I don't know if you
Yeah, I caught
realize that. So
And do we always do that?
that's something that just started. We used to do the audio only, and the last couple have been video now as well. So be on your best behavior.
I'm sure they'll broadcast them at 2 in the morning or so.
So I guess we'll just move
Keep
down.
rolling on the reports.
All right, we'll go down to reports. You have the October building permit report in your packet. A couple of you guys did mention, yes, we brought in about $20,000 worth of fees for this month, so we are ahead of schedule. We're from where we are before what we budgeted. I mean, I have to believe that we're at or over $100,000 worth of fees this year, which is good. And we have been working through as part of this budget process. Again, kind of similar to our zoning code, what we're looking to propose with Jane Drager, our building inspector, on board. We've been really focusing on trying to simplify a lot of our fees. It does get very complicated when you look at things, and my staff goes a little crazy trying to calculate things. So we have devised a revised fee schedule for next year that'll simplify a lot of the building permitting process. There will be some increases to some of the fees, but that's brings it in line with the surrounding communities. We've definitely done a lot of research on that. And then you will see, a few of you mentioned a new report in the packet this month. And one of our major goals within my department is code enforcement. We split out the position a couple years ago when we had Lindsay here. And then Elizabeth is our new code compliance officer, and she's kind of sharing duties, working with the building department as well and some stuff. And, one of the challenges that we have, and actually there'll be a presentation made to the council in January, is code enforcement's hard some days, and, we get a lot of, we start getting a little bit flack because we're being too picky or too negative. And I think part of it is just because there was a lack of enforcement for a while and just not really focusing on it. As a department and I think as a community, we've looked at, if you take care of yourself, what I mean by that is if the city takes care of their existing community and makes sure that properties are brought up to code and make sure that they're not dilapidated or anything else, it will only better our opportunity for development to come into the community or for families to move here. I wouldn't want the foundry to try to transplant somebody here from, Texas or someplace else and driving through the community, and we have houses and other properties that are falling down, dilapidated, and and they got 10 unlicensed registered vehicles in the driveway. So, code enforcement is, in my opinion, good community development is good economic development. Code enforcement is a big piece of that for me, and something that I stress, but it's not always the most favorable way to, in people's eyes, they think that sometimes we're picking on people. So we are starting to be a little bit more transparent with the code enforcement, just so, because I know council members especially get calls from their constituents about letters that may come from my department or from Elizabeth regarding code violations. I will say that we are not here to target people. We are here to just assist in trying to make for the betterment of the community, and we're here to work with people too. We're not trying to put the hammer down. So someone asked earlier, are these citations? We do write citations when they don't want to follow through, and usually when we write the citation, 95% of the time that gets the property owner to act on cleaning up their property. But we've had some occasions where that has not been the case, and we've had to go to court system or work with the judge. But so again, we just want to be a little bit more transparent so people understand. Because I believe when John was here, when we were doing some code enforcement, council members were getting letters, but we felt that this was a better way, hopefully, to present it, not only to the council, but to the community that, what's going on out there as well.
Anybody have anything else? Any questions? All right. Looking for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
So motion by Keelan, second by Barrett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 5:50. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.